Hey, what's up, guys? So I've got a lot of news to share with you guys. There are some new radar detectors that have come out recently, and there's also going to be some that are going to be coming out very soon that I haven't talked about before yet that I'm going to be sharing with you guys here for the first time. As far as firmware updates for existing detectors, there's a number of detectors that have been updated recently. The past week or two, there's been a lot of stuff going on. There's also some firmware updates that are going to be coming for existing detectors, and I'm going to go ahead and share with you guys as well. We've got news as far as dash cams. There's new laser jammers. I've got some additional information for you guys about those. We're going to be talking about Escort, Radenso, Uniden, Stinger, Net Radar, a bunch of different companies. So let's actually start with Uniden because, of course, that's always one of the big popular topics. So R1 and R3. There's a new firmware update that's going to be coming for it. It's currently being beta tested, and it's firmware version 1.38. It brings a number of different improvements and changes, including, as you guys have seen, I've posted about it on Facebook and Instagram, MRCD detection. The MRCD is a very difficult to detect low-power radar gun that's in use in Canada and now slowly starting to show up in the US. And this detector, the R1 and the R3, is now able to detect it. In beta testing so far, it's doing a very good job.
MRCD.
Now, there's a number of other updates that are going to be coming as well, and I'll share that information with you guys once it's, available and the detector firmware comes out. There's a couple changes that the beta testers have requested, kind of some tweaks as far as how some of the new features are implemented, and so, it may go through a couple changes or so before it comes out publicly, and once it's available, I'll have a full update video going over all the changes as far as 1.38 for the R1 and the R3, but no ETA yet as far as when that's going to come out. Now, speaking of updates, there is now Mac update software for the R1 and the R3 as well. I've done a video about that recently, and now when the next firmware update comes out for it, Windows users and Mac users now finally have native update software to make the update process very easy. Now let's talk about the Uniden DFR6 and the DFR7. Updates to these detectors. There actually is, but not in the way that you think. You see, these detectors are actually about to be refreshed. There's a new version of these detectors that it's going to be coming out. It's a very minor refresh, primarily a cosmetic refresh. There may be one or two new features or so, but it's pretty much a cosmetic refresh. There is going to be a new model name coming out for these. And so if you're looking for a good deal on a detector, I've talked about these in a couple previous recent videos about how they're now being discounted, and there's even discount coupons that you can get to save some additional cash. And so, these are the best budget detectors that you can find, and if you want one of them, now's a really good time to pick one up, and I'll have more information down in the video description about it. But again, new versions of these, primarily a cosmetic refresh, and new model numbers and new model names coming out for the successors, effectively, to the DFR6 and DFR7. Next, switching over to Radenso. The Radenso Pro M, there's been a series of firmware updates. We're currently up to US 9. US 9, the new firmware, basically helped address some of the false alerts that you get on MRCD, and so the MRCD false filtering is now much better. There's also a new feature called K-band S narrow. It's kind of a new K-band segmentation option. In addition to K-band wide and K-band narrow, we now also have K-band S narrow, which basically tells the detector to sweep between 24.090 and 24.185, so an even more narrow range of frequencies. And if you notice 24.185, it basically cuts off any sort of Acuras and Hondas altogether, which is really nice. Now, I've noticed this detector actually does a really good job at filtering out Acuras and Hondas in general, so you don't necessarily need to run K-band S narrow, but it is a new option to help with filtering. I said filtering because it's not exactly filtering, but filtering out false alerts that much more. Now, there's also a version of this firmware. Now that everything is looking good here on the Pro M, they've brought it over to the Radenso Pro and the Radenso Pro SE. We're now at firmware US 22, and US 22, again, brings over the same type of BSM filtering, and it's now really, really good on the Radenso Pro and the RPSE. Those detectors don't have the same chip inside, so the BSM filtering is not going to be quite as good as the Pro M, but people are reporting on the forums that now the detector is fantastic. The lockouts are working now, and so the detector now is much, much better than it was before. There's also now the K-band S narrow that's been brought out to the RPSE, just like we have on the Pro M. There's been a couple different firmware updates for the Radenso Xp as well. They've been very minor stuff. The newest one basically just updates the boot logo on the detector. I'm going to have some additional information coming out very soon as far as the XP as well as the Radenso SP, the GPS-less version of it, and that video is going to be coming pretty soon, so stay tuned for more information about that, and there may be a giveaway coming up, so keep a heads up for that. Now, as far as Radenso, more stuff to talk about. The last one that I want to talk about is the Radenso RCM, their custom-installed remote mount detector. There's been a number of different updates to that one as well. Updates to things like the lockouts and whatnot, so the lockouts are working well here now as well. They're now packaging it on their website, if you take a look, as a front and rear complete package, and so by default you're going to get it with a 2-antenna setup to give yourself the arrows. It retails for $18.49. It's still possible to get it with the front antenna version only, but by default they're actually going to be packaging it with the arrows, which I think is definitely a good option. The arrows, always a nice feature to have. Speaking of remotes, let's talk about the Net Radar Dsp next. There's been a new firmware update for the Net Radar Dsp antenna itself to basically improve the MRCD detection and the false alert filtering, so both performance as well as filtering. That firmware update is 108.200 to get that version. Basically, you can just go to RDF. I'll put the link in the video description. Download the firmware update to a USB drive, plug it into your ALP, and it'll update your remote for you. Very quick process, easy to do. If you don't have the MRCD in your area, you don't need to do the update. If you do, go ahead and update and it will improve things for you. MRCD for the Net Radar Dsp is still considered in beta, but it is now better than it was before. Next, let's talk about the Valentine One. There is a new version of the Valentine One that's coming out. Yeah, no, just kidding. There's still no new V1, there's no Valentine 2, there's no hardware or software updates. We've been waiting for years for an update to this detector. I mean, there's been new patents that have come out for a display and new hardware under the hood, the way the sweeping is being done and the filtering and all this kind of stuff, but we're still all waiting. No new updates for the Valentine One. The only real updates are still on the third-party app side. If you are a Valentine One user and you have an Android, take a look at JBV1. There's still so much cool stuff that's being added there for the app. New features and functionality and really creative, cool stuff. So if you're an Android user and you haven't taken a look at JBV1 yet, definitely take a look at that. I'll have more information in the video description on that app as well. Next, switching over to Escort. Let's start with the Max 360C. There's been not one, but two firmware updates for this since. There's been firmware version 1.4, which basically helps address some potential overheating issues now that we're getting into the summertime. And the second firmware update is firmware version 1.5, which helps with Escort Live alerts showing up on the detector when you're running the detector over Wi-Fi as opposed to over Bluetooth with your phone. Still no updates for the lockup issue. Even running 1.5, the detector does continue to lock up, and so there's been two updates for the detector in the past couple weeks, but it still locks up and we're still waiting on that fix for the detector. There's also now, it looks like, going to be an international version of this detector. It hasn't been officially announced yet or anything, but somebody was actually looking at the update software, kind of the code for the detector tools itself, and noticed that there's now mention of the Max 360C International. He even has the boot logo. I'll put it up right here so you can see what that looks like. I'm sure it's going to be just like the Max 2, where they add MRCD detection and whatnot. The Redline platform still did a better job at detecting the MRCD than the Max platform did, but it looks like we should expect an international version of the Max 360C, but it hasn't been announced yet, and I don't know anything as far as pricing, availability, any of that kind of stuff. And then speaking of the Max 360, no updates here the way that there have been for the Max 360C. So like the overheating thing, I guess maybe isn't an issue here. Maybe it is with the 360C since it added the Wi-Fi chip or something. I'm not sure why that was necessary, but no updates yet for the Max 360. Moving on to the Redline EX. There's been updates for the North American Redline EX as well as the Redline EX International. The Redline EX is now on firmware version 1.5, and it basically helps address some false alerts on laser. The Redline EX, the international version, has now been updated to firmware version 1.3, and it also has the same improvements for laser falsing. There's also an improvement to the detector's performance for the Redline EX International, but no changes or improvements for the North American version of the Redline EX in terms of performance. Now, finally, the last new thing from Escort is kind of a new detector. There's, and I'm putting it in quotes for a reason, the 8500 X50. Escort has repackaged that detector, and so the 8500 X50, which has since been discontinued, they basically put it in the shell, in the case for an S55, kind of changed the coloring around and whatnot, and now they've relaunched the 8500 X50. Under the hood, it's the exact same detector in terms of features, performance, filtering, filtering, etc. It basically looks like Escort just had some extra parts laying around and they wanted to refresh the detector, and so they just used an existing case, kind of changed the colors around, and now they have a new version of the 8500 X50. It retails for $199. I wouldn't recommend getting it because you have the Uniden DFR6 at $179, which better filtering. I mean, 34.7 performance is pretty good. The 8500 X50, the range was actually pretty good, but I mean, no BSRDR, so it was a little bit slower, whereas the DFR6 is going to be more reactive, and so there's still not a good reason to get the detector. It just seems like a refreshed version of the detector. So DFR6 at a lower price, better filtering, all that kind of stuff still seems to be the way to go. But yeah, there is now a newer version of the 8500 X50. Now, Escort also owns Cobra, and Cobra is doing some new stuff as far as dash cams. Cobra is now able to, with their dash cams, integrate with your cell phone, and if you're running the iRadar app on your cell phone, which is Cobra's version of Escort Live, you can actually get real-time radar and laser alerts on your dash cam with Cobra. That's kind of a new thing. I haven't seen any sort of like real-time threat alerts being done on a dash cam yet. And yeah, if a Cobra user is driving around with the Cobra radar detector and those alerts get posted to iRadar through the Cobra radar detector, if you're running a Cobra dash cam, you can get those alerts now on your dash cam without running a radar detector, which is kind of a cool idea. They're basically leveraging their existing technology and capabilities and integrating more and more of their products, which I do think is a cool idea. If you spot a cop, you can, just like with Waze or Escort Live or anything, you can manually mark on your dash cam and say, hey, I've seen a cop, and that information can get reported through your phone out to the cloud and notify other users. And so that's kind of a cool thing. That's something new to actually have that information on a dash cam, and so I wanted to share that with you guys. More dash cam news. DoD, I've talked to them a couple times at SEMA and at CES. They do some really cool dash cams, well, they're actually going away. DoD, the company, is basically going away, and they're going to be coming back. They're coming out as a new company called RSC Labs. So if you go take a look at their website, they've got a number of different, like, really creative and unique dash cams, some really small ones, things like that. I've been talking to them. They've got more stuff that's going to be coming. I've been meaning to actually do a review and a comparison of two DoD cameras that I saw at CES and SEMA, the LS500W and the RC500S. They're both nicer, higher-end dash cams, like the Blackview and the ThinkWare. I've been collecting footage and all this kind of stuff, but they're going away, and so, I mean, they're still nice dash cams, and I guess I'm going to skip doing my review of that one and basically just give those dash cams away to you guys. I'll have more information coming up about those two dash cams, so stay tuned for 2 more dash cams that I'm going to be giving away to you guys. Again, nice dash cams, but yeah, the company's going away, so the dash cams are going away too, so yeah, I guess that's new. And then finally, 2 more companies I want to talk about. The first one is Stinger. So we've got the Stinger VIP. That detector has long had issues with firmware updates, and while the hardware has been really good, the software, there's been bugs. It's been a pretty disappointing product. However, Stinger is actually here in the US now, and they are doing a ton of testing and development with the Stinger VIP, as well as a new product that's going to be coming from Stinger. So there's going to be new stuff coming for both the radar and the laser side. So new stuff to expect. Now, one of my biggest concerns, of course, is like, that's great, you can come out with new stuff, but your stuff has to be performing well. You guys need to execute. And so one of the reasons that they're here in the US is to really test and develop their products here in the US. They're based in Holland. And so they're actually coming here to do a lot more development. The product has the ability to do really sophisticated logging, but even with that, there's been issues with getting that information over to them so they can fully understand what's going on. So basically, they're here in the US now as we speak, testing and developing the VIP as well as new products. So they're testing everything from performance to radar detector filtering to the laser side to everything. So there's going to be a new product as well that's going to be coming out in about maybe within the next month or so. I don't have the exact ETA on that yet, but Stinger, they're actually going to be flying up here to the US and we're going to be meeting. I'm actually really excited to have a chance to meet them in person, and there's going to be some videos that I'm going to be doing with the engineers from Stinger. So some interviews, we're going to be talking about existing products, new products. One of my biggest questions, of course, is like, hey, can you guys execute? Can you guys deliver on the promises? That's one thing that I want to see. And so, you know, I'm definitely looking forward to talking to them. They've got a lot of cool stuff that's cooking. But again, one of the big questions is will it work? You know, will it actually be effective? And especially the price points that they command, they have to deliver. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of how this VIP or how it evolves and what they have coming in next. The US distributor, Cliff, he is no longer with Stinger, and so Stinger is actually working on getting a new US distributor as well. That's also another one of the reasons why they're here in the US. So a lot of changes for their existing products and new stuff coming out from Stinger. And then the final thing that I want to talk about is new laser jammers. Tmg, they are a Taiwanese company, and they've been making jammers for quite a while, and they're working on a new laser jammer that they're going to be bringing over to the US. There's been a lot of discussion on RDF about it. I've talked about it in previous videos. They've been working on it for quite a while. I mean, in just the past few weeks of development, there's been 3 new hardware iterations. There's been 14 new firmware updates. There's been quite a few updates. These guys are working really hard on this. They've, again, also been coming to the US to work on effectively detecting and jamming US guns, including the Dragon Eye. And yes, they are looking pretty effective as far as jamming the Dragon Eye as well. Their approach is different from what I understand than how the Anti-Laser Priority is doing it. And their price point should be lower than where the ALP is currently, so it's definitely one to take a look at. There's still a lot more testing and development to be done, of course, but it's looking really promising so far. The head should come with a 3-year warranty, and at launch they should be able to integrate with a variety of different radar detectors, and integrate not directly with those detectors, but some detectors that have maybe a third-party API. They are actually working on integrating with several different detectors, so when this launches, it is expected to have integration with several different radar detectors. So if you want an integrated radar detector and laser jammer setup, that's going to give you a couple new options. And so you can see a lot of stuff. We've had a lot of stuff come out recently. We've got a lot of stuff that's cooking in the pipeline, and we've got more stuff to come. There's some other things that I would love to share with you guys. It's not yet available for public release. Once that comes out, I'm going to have more update videos to come, and they will be in big updates like this, as well as in smaller update videos as they come out bit by bit. So subscribe if you haven't already and you'd like to stay updated for all this kind of stuff. If you'd like to get notified as far as when these videos come out, click the notification bell icon next to the subscribe icon or subscribe button, and that will notify you for when new updates videos like this come out, as well as when I do live streaming videos, so you can hop on live and we can chat live. And yeah, those are a lot of fun. I just upgraded my live streaming setup, and so that's going to be getting better and improving as well. So man, all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah, so that should pretty much cover all the stuff that's happened, and all of this was like within the past maybe 2-3 weeks or so. So it's been a pretty busy time. I've been super active on the forums, you know, taking notes, discussing things with different companies. I've been on the phone with Escort, I've been on the phone with Stinger, I've been talking to Radenso, I've been talking to Uniden. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's coming, and there's more stuff that's coming as well. So yeah, anyways, awesome. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you guys found this helpful. I hope you guys did. As always, love sharing this with you guys. And yeah, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.